Final Fantasy VII Rebirth released early last year exclusively on the PlayStation 5, and this year, on January 23rd, Rebirth is finally making its way to PC, and courtesy of Square-Enix, I had the opportunity to play it ahead of its release. So I actually made a review of Rebirth on the PS5 last year, and in general, my thoughts on the game itself haven't really changed, and I still think this is an excellent experience through and through. The actual content, gameplay, story, etc. here, as far as I can tell, is 100% identical to what you'd get in the base PS5 version. It's a ridiculously fun card game with an entire RPG attached to— what I mean is that the short version of my review is this. If you were a fan of Remake, this is everything Remake offered, but more and better. It's a huge, beautiful, emotional game with excellent gameplay, a fantastic sense of discovery, progression, and exploration, and some of the most fun I've had with any game in 2024. If you want the full details, definitely check out my original review, which I'll link in the description. But if you haven't played this game, you absolutely should play this game regardless of the platform. This review is going to be a little bit different from my normal stuff because a lot of the focus is actually going to be on some of the more technical differences from the original base PS5 version. Now, just to be fully transparent, I played Rebirth at launch on a base PS5, not the PS5 Pro. I know that the Pro version has some graphical enhancements that increase the game's performance and resolution, but I don't have a PS5 Pro, so I don't have any hands-on experience with that specific version. That being said, depending on your PC's specs, I think you can easily get a comparable, if not outright better experience out of this new version anyways. So let's dive into the graphical options, which can be found on the main menu and anytime in-game from the start menu. These include a windowed and borderless mode, frame rate options of 30, 60, 90, or 120 frames per second, and a number of detail options including character and environment detail, resolution scaling, and the number of characters that can be displayed on screen at a time. There's also an option for DLSS upscaling too, though I imagine that option is probably exclusive to NVIDIA GPUs. Anyways, you can set the button prompts to Xbox style or PlayStation style, which this game calls letters or symbols. Oh, and while it does have mouse and keyboard support, it also supports the PS5's DualSense controller, including the enhanced haptics and vibration, along with the adaptive triggers. It's totally optional though, and there are a variety of options for customizing the controls to your liking in the game settings. Hey, Editor Sai here. So while editing this video and going over my footage, I realized that the DualSense haptics were actually being picked up as audible audio by OBS every time the controller vibrated, and it was not a pleasant sound. I looked into this, and apparently this is a known issue with some DualSense-enabled PC games, and there are various ways to fiddle around with your audio devices to fix it, but the main reason I'm mentioning this is because I know a ton of people are going to want to stream this game, and if you're one of those people, please make sure that this isn't happening, because there's no way to tell unless you're hearing the output from OBS. And if you're streaming, that means that your audience can hear it, but you can't. The easiest way to go about it is to just disable vibration entirely, or simply use a different controller. The way I fixed it and was able to continue using my DualSense was by going into my volume mixer and specifically muting a specific output of the DualSense to my PC speakers. Any other way of fiddling with the DualSense audio led to me losing vibration entirely, so your mileage may vary. And just to be clear, this is an issue that will not affect the vast majority of players, mainly just streamers and people recording their gameplay for whatever reason. The main reason I wanted to point this out is because imagine if you recorded your entire playthrough of this game and then you wanted to post a VOD or highlights or something, and you found out that a ton of the audio had these like really loud vibration noises. I just want to make sure that people look out for that and make sure that it's not happening so they have good, clear video. That's it. I'm hoping this is a fixable issue by the developers. It seems like something that could be fixed, but I don't actually know if it's even widespread or specific to me for some reason, but it's better safe than sorry, and that's why I'm including this little segment in this video. Trust me, the sound is very loud. I'm going to show you a quick demonstration of what it looked like in my recordings, but with the volume turned way down. I just want to be crystal clear, this is a tiny minor technical issue that won't affect the vast majority of players, but instead just like a small number of like content creators. And as a quote-unquote content creator, I know how frustrated I would be if I found out that a lot of my footage had borked audio. And this isn't the fault of the devs. I'm assuming this is just a quirk with the DualSense. So yeah, just want to be clear, it does not affect my enjoyment or the quality of the game at all. Let's get back to the review. Just to give an idea of my PC specs, I'm using an RTX 4070 Super GPU, an Intel Intel Core i7-14700K CPU clocked at 3.4 GHz, and 32 GB of RAM on a Windows 11 system. I'm also running the game in 1440p, and this is actually the first ever 1440p video on the channel, specifically to show off how smooth this is, because wow. This game already looked really impressive on the PS5, but in my initial playthrough I was using a 1080 display with the performance mode on the base PS5, and this was before they introduced the Sharp mode. And while that was fine for me at the time, now that I've experienced this, I don't think I could go back. And just to give you an idea of the difference between the PS5 version and how it looks on PC, let's take a quick look, and I'll illustrate this with some of the level of detail differences that you can see here. I have the base PS5 version running in quality mode on the left, and the PC version on the right. They actually made some lighting improvements specifically for the PC version apparently, and I can actually kinda see it here, especially on this wide shot from above. Also, you can see stuff like the level of detail for distant objects in the environment being way higher in the PC version, especially for stuff like these shrubs and trees. I will say that the improvements to the lighting are a little subtle, but they're definitely there, and most noticeable to me in the close-up shots of the characters during cutscenes. Now, obviously, I'm playing this on a pretty high-end PC, and my performance may not reflect the performance someone might get on a lower-end machine. However, keep in mind, I'm running this at the max graphical settings apart from the resolution, which is honestly kinda unnecessary anyways. Plus, this game is confirmed to officially be verified on the Steam Deck, which means that hypothetically it should run on a pretty huge range of hardware. With the number of options available, I imagine that as long as you can hit the minimum requirements, you should have a pretty good experience. In fact, let's take a look at the 3 graphical presets, which are low, medium, and high. Even at low settings, the game looks amazing, and if I had to choose between a higher frame rate or slightly higher graphical fidelity, I'd probably go for the frame rate. Plus, the game's customizable resolution scaling should ideally keep it running smooth even during more hectic moments, and will likely make it run pretty smoothly even on lower-end hardware. But for me, especially given the ridiculous amount of time I'd already spent with the base PS5 version, experiencing this again with super sharp high resolution and a buttery smooth 100+ FPS is an absolute dream, and seeing these massive jaw-dropping moments with this fresh coat of paint make it almost feel like experiencing the game for the first time again. Now, there were a few moments here where I saw a little bit of stutter when loading new scenes or areas, but that's probably my SSD if I had to guess. And speaking of my SSD, this is a big game that takes a lot of space, though it's pretty comparable to the original PS5 release. But if you're picking this up for the first time on PC, be ready to make some space on that drive in the 100+ gigabyte range. But honestly, I still think the PC version is hands down the best way to play the game by far, especially if you've never played it before. If you have played the game on the PS5 already, I would say that it's absolutely worth it if you're the kind of person that wants to re-experience it with, higher settings, or wants to run back and do a bunch of stuff that they hadn't done already. There's actually a ton of stuff in this game that I'm sure a lot of people missed their first time around. In fact, a few months after I beat the game, I found out there was an entire set of mini-games that I didn't even realize was there in my original playthrough. Plus, with the improvements from the patches that we already got in the PS5 version being here by default, this really is the definitive Final Fantasy VII Rebirth experience. Plus, if you get the game before it launches on PC, there's actually this double pack on Steam that includes Remake and Rebirth bundled together at a reduced price. I don't know if that's true for every country, but it's at least there for us in the States. All in all, I'm really loving these PC releases for big Square Enix games lately. Once again, I want to thank Square Enix for giving me the opportunity to play the PC version early, and I can't wait to dig into the rest of it for a second time. And of course, I want to thank my patrons and channel members, including That's Ash and Mego Flare in the Played Every Game tier, along with the absolutely wonderful people you see on the screen. And of course, I've got to say, thank you, person watching this. As always, have a fantastic day.